What's up, guys? This is Eli Lyons. We're back. Here at Timeout Predictions, we're back. We're making a comeback, baby. We stopped posting on YouTube a little while ago, but now we're back. And so, I just want to let you guys know that I have come up with 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 new statistics for the NFL. And I think that these statistics will be very efficient at explaining something that is often contested when it comes to playoffs. And that thing is, why are NFL divisions so important? And how do they impact the playoffs so much? Well, obviously, this kind of came up a lot this past season with the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions situation, right? NFC North had the highest win percentage by division ever, by a single division, with 2.647 win percentage. That's unheard of. The top 2 teams combined went 29-5 in the regular season. That's ridiculous. They went 29-5, and yet, because Detroit swept the Vikings, swept the whole division actually, and they went 15-2, the Minnesota Vikings, who went 14-3, were actually ended up being a 5 seed in the playoffs. And so it's important to note that they were playing teams, or were about to play teams, did play a team that had a much lower record than they did. They lost to the Rams in the first round. Rams won their division with a 10-7 record. Buccaneers won their division with the 10-7 record. Buccaneers a few years ago, Tom Brady's final season, actually won their division, and this just speaks to the weakness of the NFC South, with an 8-9 record. Okay? They went into the playoffs and they lost to the Cowboys, and they lost, and they went, their final record for the whole season, including playoffs, was 8 wins and 10 losses. They were minus 2 games in the win column at the end of the season. And yet they won their division. And so what this poses, and you may be wondering, well, why does this matter? It matters because there's often been an argument as to, should the NFL go divisionless and get rid of these 8 divisions that we typically think of in the modern NFL? Quick history. NFL actually realigned divisions in 2002. Now, I was born in 2003, so I obviously don't remember that. But the NFL realigned divisions in 2002. Previously, divisions consisted of 5 teams. For example, the NFC West was the 49ers, the Rams, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, and, very shockingly, they put the Carolina Panthers, who formed in 1993, began playing in 1995, in the NFC West. And so for the first 8 seasons, the Panthers played in the NFC West. Now, modern day, after 2002, we have these 4 team, these 4 team divisions, and there's 8 of them. And a lot of them make more sense, but you could always make a point that NFL realignment may need to happen with these divisions. The point is, though, since the realignment of divisions, and we've had these 4 team divisions for a while, and with the updated schedule now including 17 regular season games instead of 16, we're seeing this kind of thing where the best teams in the NFC and the AFC aren't always the teams that win their division, and they're certainly not always the teams that make it to the playoffs. And so it's funny because the NFL typically uses winning percentages to gauge how well a team does at the end of the season. You know, how'd they do? They won 6 out of 17 games, for example. That's roughly a third winning percentage. So their winning percentage would be .333. If they went, 15-2 like the Lions, like the Chiefs, that winning percentage is offhand .882. And so these winning percentages really don't encapsulate the full picture of a division. They don't encapsulate the teams in the division. They don't encapsulate the strength of schedule. They don't encapsulate really anything outside of just the total amount of games they played versus wins. That's literally all winning percentage is, right? You take total games, which is always going to be 17. There hasn't been a forfeit in the NFL since probably the 1930s, and then you just divide it by, well, how many games did they win? Okay, I'm a Giants fan. How many games did we win? Okay, we played 17, we won 3, so that winning percentage is something like 170. Simple, right? It's all simple. Now, because they don't encapsulate strength of schedule, you may think that the Giants, which in some areas they do, just need to blow everything up, right? They just need to blow everything up, revamp D-line, revamp entire defense, revamp entire offense. The only one they want to keep is the punter, right? That's what you think. On paper, if you only look at winning percentage, it'd be quick to say that. However, winning percentage doesn't account who was in their division and who was playing well. Well, who did they play in their division? Oh yeah, the Eagles, who went number 2, finished number 2 behind the Lions in seeding, won the NFC Championship, won the Super Bowl. Oh, and who else did they play? The Commanders, who, to a lot of people's surprise, won 12 games this season. Oh yeah, and I know the Cowboys did not play to their standard, but still, who else did they play? Oh yeah, the Cowboys. Yeah. So you're playing these teams that are better than what it looks like on paper. And when you only look at what's on paper, you don't get a full picture of the type of team. And so it's really important to look at it from a divisional perspective, because for maths purposes and statistical purposes, the NFL just gave us a free breakdown. Why break up a 32-team league randomly when you already have 8 divisions of 4 teams divided up this way? And so it becomes easier, so much easier, to understand and really get a grasp of who the best and the worst teams are. And also, most importantly, for our understanding in terms of playoff seeding, why divisions are important. Okay? And what I hope to do with my stats, with my SOD package, that's what I'm calling it, Strength of Division Package, includes 4 statistics, is to fully explain and fully compare how division winners stack up against other division winners, and so on. How division losers may stack up against other division losers. And so, in this way, we're able to really get a glimpse at not just the strength of individual teams, but the strength of divisions. And so, for example, the best team, where I'm going with this, is the best team in the AFC South was the Houston Texans. Houston Texans, I believe, finished either 10-7 or 11-6. It was one of those two, 10-7 or 11-6. I think if you put the Texans, mind you, the Bengals had a very poor defense this year, but if you put the Texans against the Bengals finished 3rd in their division. Texans finished 1st. And I honestly think on any given Sunday that the Bengals would win that matchup. I would probably give them 60-40 odds to win that matchup. Had they had a little bit better defense, I think I might have had a little bit higher faith in them. But my point is, Bengals finished, I believe, either 8-9 or 9-8 in their division. And they were 3rd, and they missed the playoffs. Texans were the only team in their division to go to the playoffs. And they finished 10-7. They really barely got in. They were lucky that they played the Colts early on in the season, swept them. They were lucky that T-Law was not playing to his strengths, swept the Jaguars. They did split with the Titans, surprisingly, but the Texans and other teams, and I specifically came up with these stats with the Texans in mind because I've noticed every single time, it feels like since 2010, the Texans have gone to the playoffs. What's their record been? 9-7, 10-6. I don't think there was ever a time. Maybe I might be wrong. I think there might have been one year where they went 12-4. I might be wrong, but for the most part, it feels like every time the Texans made the playoffs in the 2010s, even this year, they were barely sneaking in. And it's because they were playing a weak division. They were playing a weak division. If you think about it statistically in terms of championships, uh, I won't say team morale, but achievements, coaches, all-time players, the AFC South has to be the worst because of the lack of championships and because of just overall, none of those teams have really been established for a long time except for the Colts. None of those other three teams have been established for a long time. And so, I think my mic died, I apologize. I think it's important that we don't just assume that a division winner is automatically the best, but it's also important to understand that the way the divisions stack up, that does allow them a more favorable chance to make the playoffs. And this is what these stats are going to do. They're going to be comparative, and they're going to be somewhat, not even tedious, but they will be effective at comparing and really analyzing, getting into the nitty-gritty of why divisions are important. Well, let's break it down and give it a simple definition. I feel like I've been beating around the bush for a while. Why are divisions important? They're important geographically. They're important because of where the NFL's markets are and how they want to split up teams. They're important because even though the 1970 AFL-NFL merger merged into the NFL, so the AFL just joined the NFL and they amalgamated into the NFL, two leagues. The NFL keeps those divisions with the AFL teams in the AFC, so that's why NFC West is typically made up of teams that were initially in the NFL. The Rams, the Niners. At one point, of course, the Cardinals. Cardinals are the oldest team in league history. And then you think of the AFC West. Well, who was one of the inaugural AFL members? Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers, Denver Broncos, and of course the Raiders. All those four teams were some of the inaugural AFL members. And so it only makes sense spatially and from a market perspective and historical perspective that they stay in the AFC, and location-wise, they're out west. So if that makes sense at all, which I feel like it should, it's more than just teams looking to make the playoffs. And I think another big reason as to why NFL divisions are important, they limit the amount of flexibility that the entire league has on itself, right? Because if there were no divisions, if there were really no enforced divisions, then the league, the playoffs wouldn't be as valuable. And there wouldn't be these historic rivalries anymore. If they ended tomorrow, there would still be historic rivalries, but you wouldn't be facing a team that you have historically faced 2 times every year in the same division. And so it limits the amount of flexibility, and it limits it. It's almost like a control group in the sense that it makes it easier to rank teams inside a division before you go to the conference stage and before you go to the league stage, because that's how playoffs are determined. And so it gives you this type of seeding, and it's also controversial because so many people argue that seeding should be based solely on record. But if it was just that flexible, where it could be only by record, then you would miss out on a lot of actual competitiveness in the games. Because I feel like every team would just go in with the mindset of either tank or just flat out demolish a team, because there's no structure. It takes away structure from the league, and if there were no divisions, only conference, then yeah, any team in that conference could get in. And then you go to this place where it's like the NBA with the play-in. The NFL does not need to have a play-in system, and I don't think it ever will. But the divisions give the league so much structure, and it makes it so much more fun and enjoyable to watch. That's a fourth aspect. It makes the league enjoyable to watch because you can look on the calendar as a fan and circle those big games and notice that those big games are coming up and be like, oh wow, this is going to have an impact on how the team plays. Sorry, not how the team plays, on where their season goes in terms of postseason opportunity. And so that's just really the basics as to why NFL divisions are very important. And so we're going to touch on that in a few minutes.